Virtue, Greg Ulmer recounts how emergency agent Barbara Ravel found attunement towards the plight of the Haitians, as the mattresses she saw called up memories of her own childhood. She was reminded of the adolescent game, Perfume in the Black Hole, which she and her friends played amongst old, moldy mattresses in her friend's family's basement. The idea of holes clicked in the Emeragency's exploration of the issues surrounding the lives of the Miami River. Ulmer followed through on the idea of holes and how it pulled together many other objects to orbit around this issue. According to Ulmer, electrate objects exist as relations, solely as pure difference without property or attribute. This quote is perfect because it allows us to think conductively about concepts that have Stimmung for us. When I read those pages about holes, I latched onto the images that jumped out at me, and so I decided to apply conductive thinking in a simple exercise about holes, or les trous. One of the first things that came to mind was the first line in the book The Hobbit. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Reading this as a young girl, I thought, what the hell is a hobbit? Does it eat carrots too? Why does his hole have a door? Readers are invited to enter that door to find out and be washed over by the adventure. Reading Ulmer, I also recalled the image of Alice falling into that legendary rabbit hole, herself seized by the strangeness of a rabbit with a pocket watch. She is drawn to the creature and she follows the rabbit's path, literally falling into a hole that is also a way into another world. Looking at contemporary culture, there is the hole in the wall, that little escape tucked away and hidden right in the midst of one of the most common elements of the city, the wall. Such locations have become treasures of a city's tourism pitch, and these places are considered a breeding ground of urban culture. And then I thought about donut holes, perhaps one of the most popular and literal examples of how something is created out of nothing. Granted, commercial donut establishments don't actually use what was cut out of a donut and instead squeeze out fresh dough into a fryer. It is interesting how the hole is now itself its own hole. Now, this got me thinking, why do we represent holes as round or spherical? In both The Hobbit and Alice in Wonderland, the holes are round. In fact, Bilbo's door is a big circle made to fit the hole. Why the spherical shape? Some say the pull of gravity causes this, and that this shape requires less energy to sustain. Perhaps we think of holes as round because we are predisposed to it, the same way some animals in nature and nature itself seem to unconsciously call up recurring forms. The hexagon is one of them, which is said to be mathematically efficient. It is the only shape that can be tessellated with triangles and squares to create stable forms that support natural processes. But what does this say about humans and how we create holes? If the hexagon is efficient for bees to store their resources, perhaps holes are the most efficient shape for humans to fall into. Its spherical shape allows us to fit into that gap. It is there because we are meant to find it, because something is waiting for us. Falling into a hole gets us into trouble. Alice and Bilbo got into their own versions of trouble. Similarly, we get into trouble every time we fall for the guiles of the adorable little donut hole. In Miami Virtue, Ulmer mentions Lacan's play on words with la trouvaille, or the find. Could holes be there for us to find? The Emeragency thinks so. Ulmer thinks of these holes as a temporary point of order and coherence. The Miami River, their site for exploration, was graphed as a hole, into which various objects would fall into. Objects totally unrelated to one another, but which find a way to fit and connect, and deliver a Stimmung or a punctum. In a way, using Lacan's play on words, to find something, we first have to get into trouble. Getting into trouble is synonymous to moving out of one's comfort zone, or accepting new ideas that make us uncomfortable. Maybe we find certain holes because we fit in them. To paraphrase Ulmer, we find ourselves in the hole to make us whole. What we don't know about ourselves, or what we don't know we know, is a hole in us. I suppose it is part of human nature to be attracted by the unknown, especially when it is rendered as dark or empty. Le trous is that strange attractor that keeps coming back. According to Ulmer, this is something that can never be suppressed or repressed because it is in us. It is the uncanny feeling, object, or stimulus that is trying to tell us something fundamental about our being and about our present. It draws from all around us, towards us, things that are themselves ordinary but may eventually play a part in an essential accident. This could be the same nagging feeling Alice felt and her subsequent discovery of the key that led her to that alternate reality, or to Bilbo's adventure outside of his familiar surroundings, all because of a ring. We could associate it with the baker's concern over wasted dough that drove him to create those donut holes and begin a revolution in the fried flour and sugar industry. Maybe the pull of that hole-in-the-wall pub every Friday night may lead us to connect to people who will matter later on. Perhaps we are destined to discover le trous, so we can get into trouble and find a missing piece to an issue, just as the emergency did, or to find a missing piece to our questions about ourselves. Perhaps we are meant to find the holes because we are the keys to unlocking the questions that are on the other side of the door, or the river. And so we are able to create something out of nothing. What was not there is now articulated. Where a void was thought to exist, where no meaning could be read of seemingly random things or images, punctums point us to where we should fall. And we should fall, so we can find the adventure that could change us, questions that sustain us, and those holes in the walls that replenish us, and those irresistible donut holes that can fill us, if only for a little while. The important thing is, everything seems better. And nothing seems as bad when you finally just let yourself go and vous trouvez dans le trou. Find yourself in the hole.